Hi, I'm Lonna Kelly, and this is Hudson Valley Art Speak. And the artist we're going to be talking to today is Jeanette Rodriguez. And I met Jeanette a few years ago, and I thought that she was a graphics designer who did jewelry on the side. But since then, I've found so much more about her. She does watercolors, and she's a painter. She's a sculptor. She's really a multimedia artist, and we'll talk about some of those things today. Hi, Jeanette. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Lonna.
Hi. I see you have one of your jewelry pieces on today, one of your necklaces, and I really love them. I mean, they're so beautiful, and I was wondering, how do you? I know they're made out of glass, but how do you do it?
Yes. Well, basically, I buy sheets of glass, 4x4. You could say they're kind of tiles of glass, and the glass contains metals in it. And so I cut I cut the glass, and I will layer them and fire it in a kiln. And some of my pieces I fire up to 2 to 3 times. And basically, once I pull it out of the kiln, I let it cool off, and I will grind down the edges and shape it, and then fire it again to give it a smooth finish. And once that's done, I wire it in sterling silver wire.
And is it the metals that give the glass the color?
Yes, it gives it an iridescent effect.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what I do is I play around with the glass. I cut the glass into like tiny little pieces, and it's like a puzzle. And just pretty much play around with it until I feel the colors work well together. And then once that's done, then I fire the piece.
Yeah, and I have a piece of your work on today, which I'm so happy to be wearing. But it's very different from the one that you have on.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
With the spirals and.
Because I like spirals, and usually my chokers are very simple, like this. And I wanted to kind of create something different. And with that particular choker, it's 3 layers of wire, which I measured at different lengths, and then with my tools by hand, I just twisted the wires to create the spirals, and then I attached the amethyst crystals to the wire.
Uh-huh. Now, I find the colors that you chose for these are, I think of them as kind of nature colors, the blues and the greens. Where do you get your inspiration for the jewelry?
The colors are it's the type of colors that I'm always drawn to. I mean, when I even look at my paintings, the colors are very similar. I love blues, I love purples and yellows and orange. I just love bright colors.
Yeah, well, I can see that in the paintings here on the wall. I know that you had started working on yupo with inks fairly recently. It was a new step for you. It kind of grew out of doing watercolors.
Yes, actually, like all my work is in general pretty much connected. And about 2 years ago, I started doing watercolors. I took a watercolor class with Deborah Bowman at the Front Street Gallery. And I love working in watercolors. I did it years ago, about 15 years ago in college. Really enjoyed it. I felt I was getting really good at it, but life happens, and working full-time job, I kind of put it aside, kind of forgot about it. But I always wanted to kind of just paint again. And I've painted in different mediums, acrylics, oils. But when I started to paint in watercolors again, I loved the softness, the transparency of it. I can really create like such delicateness, and it's like nature is delicate in a way, so I'm able to capture that, but I wanted more. So then I started painting in alcohol inks, and basically fell in love with the medium because of the vivid colors, which are very similar to my glass work, which I did not realize until someone pointed out to me, your paintings look like your pendants.
Yeah,
they
really do.
And they were right, and
yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, these on the wall are, the colors are remarkable. They're very vivid, but they are also transparent. I can see, through them to the backgrounds, and there seems to be a lot of layering going on there.
Yes, yes, yes. My alcohol inks are definitely have much more layers than my watercolors. And because I love playing with the colors, I tend to pretty much select a palette. I lay it out on my table. All the tubes are pretty much ready. And I will just grab a tube, pour it onto the yupo paper, which is a synthetic paper, by the way. It has a very smooth plastic finish to it.
Let me just ask you a question. The yupo paper, watercolor paper is very absorbent. The colors sink in basically into the paper.
Right.
But the yupo paper is not that way, is it? It just, everything lays on top.
Total opposite.
Yeah. So how do you do that? I mean, it dries very quickly. You have to work really fast.
I do have to work really fast, and that's why I learned to open up the tubes, have them ready, and then I attach my yupo paper onto a canvas and just tape it on. And so I'm grabbing the tubes and I'm just layering the ink, and I'm just playing around with the ink to blend it. And I'm working pretty quickly, and usually at the end, when I feel like the painting is finished, it pretty much dries instantly. But I use a paintbrush dip in alcohol to give my specific little effects of lifting the ink off the yupo paper. Kind of like the way you lift in watercolor, you also do lifting with water. So I've applied my watercolor techniques to my yupo paintings as well.
Now, I know that some of your work is really emotionally based, and that you had said that as a younger artist, you were told you were a little too conservative.
Yes.
And but you must have come to some sort of a turning point where you were able to dig a bit deeper and find those emotions and work with them. And I'm looking at the series on the wall here. It's much more sculptural than any of the other work here. So what is this about this?
Well, these are my Prisoner of the Mind series, which I created. It has to do with my father's illness, Alzheimer's. And I've always loved to work in three-dimensional form. And so I just needed to kind of release all these emotions that I was going through dealing with my father's illness, that this was just one way of just letting it out. And the majority of the time, I think when my teacher told me I was conservative, it's because I painted pretty pictures. I didn't know how to really release emotions. I was used to just bottling everything up. But as I've grown older, I've learned to just let it all out. And if I can let it out on paper, on canvas, on yupo, whatever material it is that I'm able to create, then it'll be either in 3D form or in yupo or in clay.
So some of your newer work is, so two of the newer series that I've seen that you created have, kind of come straight from the news, as they say on TV,
Yeah.
and from some very bad news that we've lived through recently, and one in particular was Hurricane Sandy.
Yes.
I know you created a whole series, and you come from Brooklyn originally,
Yes.
and so you were, close to the ocean and to the Atlantic there. So how did that series come about?
I was feeling angry. I was feeling depressed. I felt really like all these people were losing their homes, and it was just, and I just felt that I needed to just release all these emotions, and basically destruction. What was going on during Hurricane Sandy, all this destruction. So my first painting, which is titled Destruction, started, and I was just releasing. And as I moved on to, from painting to painting, my emotions changed. And it's interesting because I became calmer. I also received an email from a friend that was collecting donations, and And so it gave me hope. And I kind of ran upstairs and I grabbed whatever I could find that I can donate to help people that have just lost everything. And so my last painting is like the calmest one of the series, is where it was serenity, it's hope. And so that's how those, came about.
Yeah. And do you often work like that when you're really charged emotionally and you just go to, some people go for a run, and so maybe that's how you work to discharge that?
Well, it's interesting. It happened to me creating Prisoners of the Mind. And normally I paint happy pictures because I am a happy person, but life is life and you go through ups and downs. And a lot of times I write my emotions, I write poetry. And that's my way of releasing. Like I have different ways of just kind of dealing and releasing emotions. And so with the Sandy Hook series, basically it was the alcohol ink that, and then I did Sandy Hook.
Right. Yes. Tell us about those.
And
those are
with Sandy Hook, those were, I was heartbroken. I mean, who wasn't heartbroken by that incident? And I think just like in Hurricane Sandy, my devastation, I was crying when I painted that, and if you look at the streams of that painting, those kind of that represents my tears.
Yeah, yeah.
With the Sandy Hook Elementary series, Lost Souls was representing, it's just horrible. I didn't know how else to even draw or paint. I just needed to just create these images that are kind of like ghost images if you really look at the painting. And then of course Bleeding Hearts. Yeah. Because we were all bleeding. We were all crying deep inside.
That's right. So we have to leave it on that note. Our time is just about up, and I just want to remind everybody that they can see more work on your website. Okay. And hopefully we'll see a new show up soon. I know you're going to be out of town for a while, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you come back with, what's on your agenda next, because you'll be in Hawaii, won't you?
Well, I'm taking my inks with me. My alcohol inks are definitely coming with me with lots of yupo paper, so I plan to paint.
That's great. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching, and thanks to the crew for their work today. And we'll look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I think we got it all.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I felt like I couldn't think.